For record-keeping purposes, if you wish to make a statement regarding any item on the agenda, please complete the form located at the entrance or at the rear of the council chambers and deposit it with the Planning and Housing Commission Secretary. Welcome to tonight's Planning and Housing Commission meeting. Commissioner Sickland will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Persons wishing to address the Planning and Housing Commission are requested to state their name for the record. This portion of the agenda is intended for public comment. State law prohibits the Planning and Housing Commission from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. The Planning and Housing Commission will appreciate your cooperation in keeping your comments brief. Please observe a 3-minute limit. Ms. Capilla, do we have any speaker cards or written comments for from the public for items not on the agenda?
No, Chair Woody, we did not receive any speaker cards, no written comments.
Okay, very good. Next, we will consider approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting on November 20th. Ms. Capilla, do we have any speaker cards or written comments from the public regarding the November 20th meeting minutes?
No, Chair.
All right, very good. I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Would anyone like to second?
I'll second.
All right. And then let's please vote. All right, motion passes. Next, we have a public hearing. These are items that have been publicly advertised for review and consideration by the Commission. The public hearing tonight is for TTM 37895. It is a tentative tract map application to subdivide 61.6 acres into 103 single-family residential lots in the R112 zone. Located on the east and west sides of Laurel Canyon Way, south of Sherbourne Avenue and north of Shadow Valley Drive. Applicant is Imad Bolas for Mary Gergis LLC. We have Ms. Yang, our planning manager, here to present the item.
Good evening and thank you. As the chair indicated, tonight we have a tentative tract map application to subdivide approximately 61.6 acres into 103 single-family residential properties. The project site is located on the west side of the I-15 freeway, just south of Sherbourne Avenue and north of Shadow Valley Drive. The project does border the County of Riverside immediately to the east and to the south. The surrounding areas consist of existing single-family residential properties within the city of Corona to the northwest and residential properties that are within an unincorporated area of Riverside County to the southwest. To the north is a concrete manufacturing plant, and to the east and south are residentially zoned vacant properties that are within the County of Riverside. Before I go into the project details, I did want to provide the Commission as well as members of our public some background on the site. So back in 2014, the project site was approved under a different map number, TTM 36533, for the subdivision of 103 single-family residential lots. That project was a gated proposal, a gated design with lot sizes ranging from approximately 12,000 to over 36,000 square feet. The project also included a recreational area that was proposed on the west side of Laurel Canyon Road. The project included 2 gated entrances. The main entrance was located off of Old Temescal Road, and the secondary entrance was located at the project's south boundary. The project was previously blasted and rough graded under the original proposal. The applicant that had processed this application is not the same applicant under the current proposal today. They were under different applicants. The applicants were required to record that map within 2 years of receiving their approval. Unfortunately, that did not happen, and so the map did expire in 2016. In 2014, the project site was acquired by the current applicant. And then in 2021, the applicant did process the application with the city of Corona, basically to re-entitle the original project. And then in May 12, 2022, the applicant did conduct a community informational meeting, which was held at the historic community room here on 6th Street. And that was to inform the nearby residents of the project site of what the application was proposing. And then during the time that the applicant was processing the application with the city of Corona, the applicant was also processing a separate application with the county of Riverside, and that was to subdivide approximately 30 acres within unincorporated Riverside County into 38 lots. That area is located immediately to the south of the project site that is being reviewed tonight. And the reason why I bring up this county project is because it affects the project's secondary access point. So the current project that is being reviewed tonight is 61.6 acres. The site is zoned R112. This is a single-family residential zone with a minimum lot size requirement of 12,000 square feet. The site's general plan designations are estate residential, which allows for up to 3 dwelling units per acre, and low-density residential, which allows for up to 6 dwelling units per acre. The lots that are being proposed range from approximately 12,000 square feet to a little over 33,000 square feet, and the project's density is 1.67 dwelling units per acre, which complies with the general plan. The current proposal is proposed as a gated community similar to the original project. It also includes a recreational area within the same location that was originally proposed. 2 entrances are proposed. The main entrance is located off of Old Temescal Street, and the secondary entrance is located at Shadow Valley Drive, which I'll show you in the next exhibit. So essentially, the applicant is trying to re-entitle the original project with the exception of 2 project modifications. The first modification, it has to do with the recreational area. The original proposal included a recreational area that proposed a playground and more active amenities, which included a tennis and/or basketball facility. With this project, the applicant is proposing to make the amenities more passive. It includes a playground and an open grass area. The other modification has to do with the project's secondary entrance. So as indicated earlier, that secondary entrance was originally approved at the project's south boundary within the city of Corona. The applicant is proposing to move that secondary entrance further south and onto Shadow Valley Drive, which is located within Riverside County's jurisdiction. That secondary entrance will be gated. The gate is proposed just right before the State Street intersection. And the reason for designing it this way is because the applicant has indicated to staff that his ultimate goal is to develop both phases within the city and the county and combine that into a single community, which would be gated. The future residents within both areas would have access to both project entrances. So I'd just like to go over some of the public improvements and traffic mitigation that this project warrants. First, the project is required to construct Laurel Canyon Road to meet city standards, and that would include putting in curb and gutter, sidewalk and landscape parkway along both sides of Laurel Canyon Road adjacent to the project site. Laurel Canyon Road is that one street that runs right through the project site that separates the lots from the recreational area. In addition, the applicant is required to install traffic calming mitigation measures for the segment of Old Temescal Street from the I-15 overpass to the project site, and that would include restriping the street to include a 10-foot and 12-foot travel lane, and restricting parking along the north side of Old Temescal Street. And it's important to note that these traffic calming measures are actually requirements that are being carried over from the original project. The applicant is also required to pay a fair share cost towards a traffic signal at the intersection of Ontario Avenue and State Street, and this is required prior to map recordation. The applicant is also required to pay a fair share cost towards another traffic signal at Rimpel and Old Temescal. And finally, the applicant is required to construct Shadow Valley Drive per county standards prior to project opening. For the environmental review, the city prepared an addendum to the original project's adopted mitigated negative declaration. The purpose of the addendum is to assess the project changes, which includes the recreation area and the new secondary access. All prior mitigation measures from the original project's mitigated negative declaration will carry over onto the current proposal. It's important to note that the addendum does include an updated traffic impact study. And the reason why the traffic study was updated is because it had to analyze the cumulative traffic conditions for the project, not only in the city of Corona, but also in the county, which is new. That was not in the original proposal. So I'm just going to provide a very brief overview of what the traffic study looked at and the findings. If the commission has any additional questions regarding that, staff is happy to answer those questions. The study looked at 16 street intersections. 15 of those 16 intersections are anticipated to operate at an acceptable level of service. The one street that does require mitigation is the intersection at Ontario and State Street. That does require the construction of a traffic signal. So the applicant is required to pay for the cost of constructing that traffic signal at that intersection. In addition, 12 roadway segments were analyzed, and all 12 roadway segments will operate at an acceptable level of service. Recommendation. Staff is recommending that the Planning and Housing Commission recommend adoption of the addendum to the adopted mitigated negative declaration and mitigated monitoring plan and approval of tentative track map 37895 to the City Council based on the findings contained in the staff report and the conditions of approval. And that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We have county representative from the Riverside County Transportation Department, as well as city staff, and we have the applicant's consulting team as well. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ms. Yang. A very informative presentation. I'd like to just start with a question for you. So the original track map that was approved but never recorded, it did not include the county portion. That was not part of the previous owner's plans. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so that's why there's the gate was previously at the south of that. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
That's correct.
And then the zoning on the zoning map you showed us, it has the parcel listed as R120, but the staff report and your presentation said 112, so.
Thank you for bringing that. Yes, there was an error on the locational map. It is erroneously shown as R120. It is R112.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the interface between the county approval and then what's before us from a city level. You noted that the applicant has already submitted to Riverside County, but they're not pursuing that. Is there already insight as to what Riverside County requirements would have on this project? And is that what's incorporated in here? For example, the Shadow Valley Drive requirement, the movement of the second gate. So I'm just curious, is it already known what the county input would be on this project? And is that also incorporated into this application?
So no, we are not aware of what the county has looked at or what their comments are for the 38 units that are being proposed within the county. The access on Shadow Valley Drive is being warranted by this project in the city of Corona. And we have coordinated with Riverside County Transportation Department on that access and what that improvement would look like.
If I could just ask the follow-up then. So assuming that if this were to be approved tonight here, then the applicant would then need to pursue the process with the county for the remaining 38. So there's no, I guess it's potential that the county could refuse that application and then they would be left with just potentially one entrance. Is that a possibility that could take place?
The secondary access on Shadow Valley Drive is required for this project, so that will stay, whether the applicant pursues the county project or not.
So that road would be remain improved then through the 38 home parcel?
That is correct.
Okay.
I have a question. Do you have from the 2014 report what the traffic report is for review?
I do. Just give me 1 minute. Are you referring to the number of trips that the prior project is? So on the old traffic study, the old mitigated negative declaration, or I should say the original, indicates that the original project was expected to generate 981 average daily trips.
Okay, well, I wanted to have it in front of me. I'm writing and I can't have all of that on the screen, so in comparison to what it's going to have now.
The current traffic study indicates that the 103 lots are anticipated to generate 971 daily trips. And then just for informational purposes, the southern portion, which is in the county, 38 units, that project is expected to generate 358 daily trips. And that table is in your staff report on page 5.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Sicklin's questions about Shadow Valley Drive. So Shadow Valley Drive currently doesn't exist, if I'm understanding that correctly. Is that right?
That's correct. It's
Okay.
basically dirt.
Thank you for the report. I'm just curious how that works with the city and the county. Not a fan of the project being split into two. Was there any consideration to bring it into the city and have it one project? And how would that work?
Well, being that that area is in the Riverside, is within Riverside County's jurisdiction. In order for the applicant to bring that into the city, the applicant would have to go through the annexation process, which is a completely separate entitlement process.
Was there any discussion when the applicant worked with the staff as to making that happen?
There was no discussion regarding that.
Thank you. Regarding the traffic calming measures to restrict the parking in the original project, could you go over that again, please?
Of course. So that is those traffic calming measures were on the original project. They were requirements that stemmed from discussions that occurred between the county residents and city staff during the original initial project. And so it seemed like at that time, the city's traffic division decided to implement those traffic mitigation measures in response to the concerns that were raised at that time. And so what we're doing here with the current proposal is simply carrying that over.
Thank you. Regarding the layout and having the recreational area off Laurel Canyon, I'm not a fan. Is there any restrictions to building that? And was there any discussion, for example, to put the park in the middle of the project versus off to the side down below? The reason why is and I brought it up at the community meeting I attended, and it seems an odd layout. It seems a park is an amenity for the community, and here it is down and below, not accessible. And I have concerns regarding creating another Sierra Bella Park where it's down below, no eyes, and the problems that happen at that park. And the PD is still dealing with that today. I'm just curious if there was any discussion, other alternates other than the ones submitted today.
There are no discussions with staff, but I would like to defer that question to the applicant's team to see if that is something that they looked at.
I can wait until after the staff questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going over most of the community outreach notations that were made from May of 2022. And a lot of the concerns had to do with the traffic flowing through their neighborhood, Bel Air. I like that the signal going in at State is addressed there. I like the gated community part of it. There was some discussion at the community meeting regarding the flow of traffic, and this community, when it comes in, if they're commuters, they wouldn't be able to make access. They would have to go down south to catch on the 15 North to catch the fast track, because you wouldn't be able to get it going north. So I was just curious if those traffic studies were looking at that possibility, that it would all go south. Is that the reason for the Shadow Canyon entrance in the county?
I'd like to defer that to the city's traffic division, if I may.
Hi, I'm online.
Thank you, Rosie.
Hi, Karen. I think the question was how was the traffic distributed amongst the project sites? Is that the question?
I was curious if during the study, Rosie, if you guys looked at the concerns of the residents at the community meeting where they brought up that the traffic flow would be south to the 15 North so that they could catch the fast track that way, and that would put an undue burden on the intersections in that area.
Yes, I believe at the time there was still discussion on whether it was going to be private and gated, and now the project is gated, so the only people who will have access to go south are the 103 homes. So it will not be cut through traffic for the entire, Laurel Canyon or anyone else who want to just use it to cut through.
Well, 100,
It'll only be a 3 homes, yes. And at the time, the traffic study seemed to show a different distribution pattern. And we did ask the traffic engineer preparing the study to increase that trip distribution
So
going
that-
southbound.
that's where it got to the 1329 daily trips?
Right. They had a different distribution breakdown, a bigger percentage going up Old Temescal and much smaller distribution going southbound. So we increased the southbound traffic, and that is kind of where the Ontario and state traffic signal also comes into play. More traffic goes down that way. They are responsible for a higher fair share.
Okay, thank you, Rosie.
Yep.
On your presentation, you noted when all these improvements would happen, and you used a phrase, and I wrote it down, and now I can't find where I wrote it, that it was when the project opened. Can you define what that means when a project opens?
Yes, prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy for the first home.
So they could build everything and then have to put these things in. So
They
it'll be
have to-
after all of the work is done.
Excuse me, just give me 1 second. So when I use the term prior to project opening, I was referring to the construction of Shadow Valley Drive, which is their secondary access. So the applicant is conditioned that to construct the street per county standard prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy for the first home within the project.
What about all the other improvements?
The 2 traffic signals, they have to guarantee the payment of the cost of constructing the signal prior to map recordation.
But
And then-
no timeline on when those signals would go in?
The signal has to be, the 2 signals have to be constructed prior to project opening. So prior to,
That first certificate of occupancy?
correct. Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
If we can, Mr. Kampouk, can you elaborate on State Street in Ontario? Because I believe is that also could possibly be a CIP project that may come before this project on the timing on that. So can you just explain a little bit about that?
Sure. The traffic signal at State and Ontario is going to be part of a CIP project, and we've already incorporated that. And just to give everyone a heads up, that project is now fully funded, so we will be anticipating constructing that within the next couple of years.
I'd like to add to that, Joanne. I discussed this with Tom Poper on the signal timing. If the developer comes in first before the Ontario widening, we will install the signal, not to its full ultimate design. We will just install it to, make sure the traffic gets through. And then when the Ontario widening comes in, we will complete it. Just modify it. So there should be a signal there whether the Ontario project moves forward or not.
Commissioner Longwell, I did want to clarify, myself, regarding of the improvements being done prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy. That this applies to the production units, not the model homes. So if the applicant were to propose a model home complex, they can still open the model homes.
Yes, a question regarding utilities. So assuming this were to be approved and then you have the county portion of the development, are all of the city utilities provided only for the 103 sites and then the 38 would fall to Riverside County utility? And storm drain and all the infrastructure?
The water and sewer facilities would be the Corona Utilities Department, and then the storm drain would be the county.
And the utilities just for the 103, or is it considered that the potential future county development would be also in the same utilities?
The future county development would connect to the utilities within the 103 unit tract.
They would, so they would be part of essentially Corona Utility, so water. And so in your evaluation of those utilities, is the water supply and sewage and all of that appropriately
Yes,
sized for the larger development?
the 103 units are standalone. The design is, doesn't anticipate or isn't predicated on the development of the county tract.
Okay, I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. So if the county tract were to be added to the development, would the full unit count be on Corona City Utility? And is that part of your calculations?
Well, the city has not analyzed the county track at this time. We've only approved the design for this track.
And if, looking at the boundary lines, then would that then change potentially, the city's ability to service that additional unit count?
Can you rephrase that question?
So we would provide Corona water. We currently provide water to the El Cerrito area, so they are our service provider, so that is already in our master plan. So that's not going to be an impact. So, and then the county is in charge of the LAMP, which is when it comes to any sewer. So if they are able to tie into a sewer facility, then projects have to tie into sewer. They cannot go on septic. So that'll be evaluated for the county project when they come in. It is likely that they will go into sewer because of the improvements that are provided by the city, but I don't know if that is yet to be evaluated. But the engineer is nodding at me, so when he comes up, he can verify that for the
Okay, thank you.
project.
I'm good.
Okay, well, if we don't have more questions for staff,
I have one more. Ms. Yang, could you project, if you could, if there were limited obstacles and the county project moves forward? Is it on hold until our hearing is done, or is it simultaneously? How does that work? And what's the timing of this project to start, models to open, certificate of occupation, and then also the county's timing?
So I'd really like to defer that to the applicant, but what we know is that the applicant has decided to put a hold on the county project until the city's project goes through first.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I did miss a note. I noticed again, there's several places, both in the staff report and the project conditions. There's this interesting phrase that says that the traffic signal will be paid for 100% by the developer if the city constructs the signal first. I know you mentioned earlier that the CIP had been approved and the construction moved forward. But I'm curious why that language is there that says the developer will pay for the signal if the city constructs the signal first. What's the reason for that language? It's kind of odd.
It's about timing. It depends on if we come in first, they're still responsible for payment of that signal. But if we don't come in, it's like Rosie had mentioned, they would be responsible for constructing it. Regardless of the situation, we'll make sure that the signal is there for the development.
Yeah, okay.
And I guess to jump on that, Sabat, a lot of the concerns of the residents that attended that community meeting, and it was in our staff report, were concerns about the traffic and the timing and the impact to the community without the infrastructure being there first. Could you talk about that? Is that how that works as far as putting the infrastructure in first and then the project moves forward, or what's the sequencing of that?
I believe that's part of the project conditions. They have to put in that infrastructure as If I understand correctly, even if the developer decides not to move forward with the county portion, they still need to provide the infrastructure so that it still works for the traffic.
Thank you.
If I can just clarify, because we're just trying to mesh the two pieces. So we condition the project to do Shadow Valley in the county, which is going to be gated because that's also the secondary point of access for our fire personnel. So the secondary point of access has to be there regardless if the county piece is ever developed or not. So the developer is able to provide that connection. So that's why that is happening. So yes, that infrastructure needs to be in place in order to provide that secondary point. What they've basically done from the old proposals that they just moved that gate now closer to State Street, where before it was inside Corona, and now it's going to be in the county. So it's all still functioning the same with the restricted access. It just got, just required the extension of the road to get to State Street.
And am I missing something as far as the intersection and the signal? Is that CIP going to happen down the road and the payments happen down the road? Or is that going to be up front? Or how does that work?
Again, whoever comes first. If the developer comes in first, they'll construct it. If the city comes in first, then payment will be made by the developer.
But payment will be guaranteed prior to map recordation. So if CIP has not started that signal, but they are going to record this map, they have to guarantee 100% of the cost of that signal. And then it depends on the phasing. So as Rosie had indicated, it may be a partial signal until the entire improvements are in for the CIP, and then it becomes a full-term movement signal. So it's all in the timing, but the developer at the end of the day is responsible for 100% of the cost. So we are going to get it whether it's guaranteed or they're going to be paying for it after the fact.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, we will open the public hearing, and anyone wishing to speak should come to the podium. I wonder if we might start with the applicant, though, so we can clarify some of these things that we were previously talking about. So I have two cards from representatives of the applicant, and I'm guessing you must be one of them, sir.
Yes, I'm Bill Brooks, civil engineer, located at 1350 East Chase Drive in support of the project. Commissioners, staff, and planning manager, thank you for having us. I've been involved in this project since 2010, so I've got a lot of knowledge with what's gone on and in the development. So let me see if I can try to clean this up a little bit and answer the questions that I wrote down, and then if there's more, I can do my best to answer. So basically, the site, as you know, has been not only mass graded, it's been rough graded. The 103 lots, they were pad ready certified in 2016 when the map expired. The infrastructure that was put in, downstream sanitary sewer to Shearborn per the original conditions of track map 36533, that's over 3,000 feet of sewer that we connected the Bel Air HOA to and eliminated those perk ponds. That was another condition. So the downstream sewer is in. The secondary water from Old Temescal and Compton is in, and it's stubbed to Monolivo Drive, as well as the reclaim water. That was put in about 2015 or 16 too. Now, reclaim water has not been brought to that point, but it's dry and it's ready to go. So there's 2 points of water connections. The sanitary sewer is in, and the storm drain system's in. We put in a 60-inch storm drain on the west side of the project that connects to the county track, and we put in a 54-inch storm drain on the east side for flow-throughs from the county. Those were both in and accepted prior to map expiration. So there was also comment on Shadow Valley Drive not being there. Actually, it is a public road, paper street on the underlying parcel map, 14979. That road is simply being realigned to accommodate the requirement for secondary access for this project. in a gated fashion. I have there's one of my maps, I think it's on sheet 2 or 3. I don't know if we want to call it up, but you can see the Shadow Valley Road is going to be quitclaimed. If that map doesn't go forward, the county map, that 37142, the 38 lots, we've recorded an easement for that public road that's going to run with the land. So if the county project goes away, there's this developer still going to build a road for secondary access. And who's to say that 38 lot ever does go away? I mean, it may get pared down, it may be something else, but it's planned for 38. So the other thing I wanted to bring out is utilities on service. So when we processed 37142, which is on hold at the county, we had a will serve letter at the time from the city to provide water and sewer service. Those facilities, our facilities on our project, have been stubbed and are appropriate depth to serve the county project if it ever comes forward. At the terminal location of each cul-de-sac, we have manholes planned and stubbed. So I hope that answers that question. And then LAFCO, there was another question. If we ever looked at annexing the county portion, and back in 2012, it was discussed with city council members, but it was not well received. They didn't think that it would be supported, so it never went forward. But that was one thing we wanted to do, was to get it all into City of Corona sphere, out of the county sphere of influence, so that it could be controlled by one entity. So that's the reason, that's some of the background on where we're at over the last 14 years. So with that, I know there's going to be other questions. I'll come back up if I can, but if you guys have anything while I'm here, I'll gladly answer.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Brooks. Yeah. Commissioners?
I had a question. So the Shadow Brook Road, it's going to be built. It's already there. Let's see.
So it's a paper street. It doesn't exist, but it's on an underlying map.
So if county doesn't build their 38 and that street is there, who's responsible for maintenance on that road?
Well, it would have to be
County,
accepted. Right? It would have to be accepted. So the county right now, they would have to accept it into the county maintained system. So I can speak for, go ahead. I'm assuming it would get built. It would be maintained by the developer.
As we know with Liberty and La Gloria, it's not an easy process.
Yeah. So go ahead,
and it's
Kevin.
very time consuming.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always happen.
So my name's Kevin Singh, engineering project manager with the Riverside County Transportation Department.
Thanks for coming, by the way.
Sure. Just to speak on whether the county would accept Shadow Valley Drive if the 38 lots were not to go forward. It is gated, and once you gate a road, it becomes private. And so the county would not accept Shadow Valley Drive for maintenance if it were to be gated.
Right. So it's going to be in the HOA.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Actually, you mentioned HOA. That was one of the items on my question list, and maybe it's even for city staff. We have discussed previously a ideal unit number before we consider properties for an HOA. Joanne, I don't know if that would fall to you, but I'm thinking 103 units is acceptable for an HOA. Yep. And then,
And that's because there's a lot of slope maintenance here. It's too large for anybody to maintain, so you do have to have, a maintenance corporation to take care of those slopes that are being created within the development.
okay, and then the subset of that is when you have this interesting interface of a what if in a county project, would the HOA on the county side be part of the Corona HOA?
Yeah.
I believe that's the way they would look at the CC&Rs. They would provide that language in there, that Shadow Valley Drive needs to be a part of the covenants, conditions, and restrictions for this HOA because they're planning it to function that way.
Mm-hmm.
But are the 38 part of the?
Yes, it would be one. That was the plan. It's
So 141 homes
Yeah.
would be
If-
in the HOA.
right.
If it moves
If
forward.
everything was, you know, if I may, there was one other thing I forgot. The quarry, you guys asked about the passive park. You know, why is that there? At one time, we wanted to put lots there, but with the sight distance on Laurel Canyon, you know, and the steepness of that hill, it wasn't, it didn't really pencil out. So the original proposal was to do a park like with a you know, community pool and a you know, clubhouse. But for the number of units that we have, it didn't really pencil out as far as like the HOA fee would be exorbitant, you know, for the members to pay for that, to carry that. So that's why it got pared down.
Could you talk about that slope down there, which is tremendous?
Well, it's so from what I know, you know, it used to be it was mined. I think it was dug out. It's pretty steep, sheer face. So there's as part of the mitigation for this project, you know, we have to clean up the slope, get the rocks off, and I think there'll be a rock wall or rock fence at the bottom, and that's in the conditions. That was identified by the geotechnical project geotechnical report. So we don't have, developer doesn't have a problem with that condition. It always planned on doing that.
And actually, I wanted to just clarify something, because I know Commissioner Alexander mentioned she thought it was a little odd that the park was where it was. But if I understand correctly, the park is outside of the gates, right? So it would be accessible by, you know, other nearby Corella residents?
Bel Air community, I mean, it's more of a passive park to walk to, you know, in the morning, have a cup of coffee, walk your dog. There's, you know, like a DG or sidewalk, you know, along the front, but a DG path, a walk path, maybe some exercise stations, you know, like they have over at Lincoln Park. But, you know, just a few parking spaces. It's not that big a space. It's not really.
But what was originally intended for that park, when it was intended as more of an
I think it was more of a
active-
clubhouse and like a, you know, like a small pool and a clubhouse where, you know, the residents could reserve it for, you know, parties and, you know, receptions or whatever. But
I thought maybe in the staff report, it said something about tennis court or basketball court or something like that.
I think it had some component, some component of that. But I remember there was a clubhouse and there was I thought there was a pool.
It is conceptual at this time. The details of this recreational space will be reviewed in much more detail with the precise plan application when that comes before the city. The precise plan application will look at the details of the homes, the architectural design, as well as the recreational space. So what you see right now is really conceptual. This may even change with the precise plan application.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's a great point, actually. That this is just about subdividing the property, and then we'll look at it again when there's a precise plan.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Were you talking about the original proposal in the park or the?
Well,
the
I
current?
was actually,
Okay,
but
'cause
it's a good point that
yeah.
came up there too.
Okay. All right.
Do we have any more questions for Mr. Brooks, or should we move on to other speakers?
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. All right, I will call a couple names, and you can all please come forward. So it's the order that I've got these cards. So I have Dave Arlington, Jerry Fox, and Jennifer Piles.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Arlington. I live at 18570 State Street, which is just north of Smurber. Kind of goes up a little bit of a hill, and right before their proposed road they want to put in. to enter State Street. I've been at all three meetings they've had at this thing, and I brought this up before, and nobody's done anything about it. I have serious objections to their traffic report, which was done insufficiently to start with. It's still not done right. Number two, 103 units provide 206 cars potentially, and I know damn well that, excuse my language, but I know damn well they're not going to be using Laurel Canyon going over to Rim Power, whatever, to get on the freeway. They're going to be coming down to State Street. Well, right now, my Midway Street, or whatever they want to call it, because it's not really named, when I come out of that road with 5 houses there, it's an upgrade to the street. When you get to the top of the street, you're right at the top of the hill. Zero visibility to the left, zero visibility to the right. Now, in order to get on to State Street headed south, I got to jump out into the lane with traffic coming at me. So I veer off, and this happens 2 or 3 times a week at least, if not more. I almost get run over. We've had close collisions in there multiple times. And I have a serious issue with that road coming in like that. I don't think the proper planning was done with the county. I think the county should be on their own. It should not be affected by the State Street as far as a secondary easement and access to the property. Number one, I don't have a problem with their development. I have a problem with their accessing to State Street. That's my issue. They've blown up my property, cost me $200,000 in damage, which I got $0 for, plus all these other people around me that had damage. Nobody got $1 out of that because the guy went bankrupt, or at least he said he did. I have issues with that, but that's not the point at this point. I think Corona should stay with Corona, county should stay with county. County should be 1 acre lots, just like mine is a 1 acre minimum lot. And I have been there for 26 years, and I've made my property the way I like it. I don't want my neighbor right next door to me. That's why I bought where I am. What you're proposing to run all these ads, you're running me into a track house environment. I moved out of Diamond Bar to avoid that. And I really have issues with this. If you break it up, if you could pull up your map and show it, the access across to Magnolia, can you show it up on your map? I'll show you something I proposed at the last meeting, and nobody would listen. And apparently nobody's done anything about it, and it makes a better easement road for your secondary access. I also asked for if you're going to make that a gate accessible by fire only locked, not a gate that they can come through willingly. If you could pull that map up, I know I'm out of minutes, but the engineer came up when he was up here forever, but I'm trying to cover.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the map again here as we go through the, and maybe we'll have you come back up and mention that. But we want to get on and hear the other speakers here. So next I have Jerry Fox, Jennifer Piles, and Howard Piles. So if you can also come to the front and be ready to move up to the podium. Okay. Ms. Yang, can we get the map up there then that Mr.
Jerry. Okay, if you broaden that out, I can't see it over there because my eyesight. You can put it over here. I appreciate it. Okay, you see, well, you can't quite see Magnolia Avenue from this map if you can expand out a little bit, but that what used to be a dump over there, which is just north of this development, City of Corona owns that dump. I tried to at one time develop that into a solar farm, but they turned that down too. But anyway, right next to that dump is the animal shelter, and there's a light right there at Magnolia Avenue, already in place. If they would take and run their road parallel to the fence, which is parallel to the railroad tracks, instead of trying to cross the tracks, which is what they didn't want to do because it cost them too much money. Well, if they run their road, because it's city-owned property anyway, nobody's doing it, make them put the road in. Tie into the signal right there at Magnolia. They can access the freeway.
You're talking about by the animal shelter.
Yeah, right there by the, so you can go right beside the animal shelter with the road. It's already in place. It made perfect sense because it doesn't tie in State Street, doesn't affect with the county, get rid of the, tie up with county. They've blown me up like for so long. I'm so pissed off at them about that. And nobody did anything about it. Well, and number one, I'm at 18,570. I'm within 1,000 feet of their development or less. How come I didn't get a notification about this meeting or the previous one, either one? There's not anybody close to all the people that are going to be affected by this.
Okay.
So no notification on top of it. But just by putting that road through the other way solves all the problems. But don't be tying up county. County should be 1 acre minimum and on septic, just like the rest of us all on State Street are on septic. City Corona, water, yes, some issue with that, but that's another issue.
Okay. Well, I think we all understand your idea about this street, and it's an interesting idea.
Well, why wasn't it addressed? I mean, putting a street light at State Street is not going to accomplish anything because it's always a nightmare. And everybody that lives there know we turn left on Poppy and a right on, I think it's Hidden Hills. What is that? Hillside or whatever the name of the other street. And that's how we go left on Ontario because you can't go left coming off of State Street. It's impossible with all the traffic flow.
Yeah, I know what the traffic's like over there. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'd like to hear from Jennifer Piles or Howard Piles. I also have a card from Julie Trapp, and then a few more after that.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I kind of have the same concerns as Chairman Alexander with the traffic. I think a lot of the residents and a lot of us aren't here because I think there's just kind of an issue as far as having, like a list of residents or emails to be able to get the word out that there is meetings to address these issues. But the biggest thing is the traffic. We already have a lot of traffic that goes down State Street as is. And there's a stop sign, yes, at Poppy and State Street that the majority of people do not stop at. The house that's on the corner of Poppy and State they've already had an accident there where they've ran into the telephone pole and took it out the mailbox. Thank God that it didn't go into the house or hurt anybody. But that, for me, and I know for a fact a lot of the local residents, that's the biggest issue is that quote unquote secondary access, which again, in my opinion, I know Stephanie Furr was the one that brought it to my attention that I didn't even think about as far as those residents would be using State Street more prominently than the other access because of the fact that assuming they're working in Orange County and they want to use Fast Track, again, like Chairman Alexander had brought up, that in order for them to get into Fast Track, they have to get on at Ontario. If they get on at Magnolia, it's already closed. They'd have to go further down and get on. It just doesn't make sense. So they would be using what there is trying to say is a secondary access. It's going to end up being everybody's primary. So all of those residents are going to be using State Street, and it's just going to be horrible, traffic light or not. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And then I have, were you Jennifer? Okay. So then I still have a card from Howard Piles. I have Julie Trapp, Mark Schlemmer. Any of those can come to the podium.
My name is Julie Trapp. I'm a resident of Laurel Canyon. I live down at the bottom of the street at the cul-de-sac. I appreciate you having us here tonight. The one thing I have not heard here tonight at all is a concern from the current residents of Laurel Canyon. And nobody's come to ask me what we see of this. And the first thing that comes to mind is, I don't know if nobody else on this board lives down there, right? Nobody in the Planning Commission lives there? This isn't your daily drive? Well, let me tell you about our daily drive. This is a dangerous road. Dangerous road was the words that Jackie Casillas used when she actually walked the property with me at a time. I challenge you, about 3:30, 4 o'clock, come to Laurel Canyon. Go west on Laurel Canyon out of my street to go to the city. You can't see 10 feet in front of you because of the grade of the street to have to go up and over. There's been dogs hit. As somebody here can attest, there's been child pushed off to the side of the road. There are no sidewalks on our street. This is a dangerous road. It's still, Savat could attest to, an F-rated street, correct? We have been on the calendar since 2015 to get our street repaved. 2015, when, what was his name? Nelson promised me it would be done that year. So an F-rated street, it's dangerous. We have no other access out of our neighborhood except under a major interstate and over a major waterway. If that gets flooded like it's done before, we're out of luck, okay? Anything happens on that interstate, we're also out of luck, okay? We're down there, we're on our own. This is classic, I hear you guys talking, it's classic, let's build before any proper infrastructure is built. And if you allow that to happen, shame on you, because this doesn't have to be this way. There has to be another way to get in and out of that property. I'm not saying the county road is the only way to do it, but I'm saying our way right now, even as current residents, isn't safe. It's dangerous. I don't approve of this unless you have two legitimate ways. I've lived in the county for 25 years down by Tom's Farms. I know how it operates. They say, and everybody's like, if it's built, it's not going to be built anytime soon. We know that. And originally, this plan was 52 homes before they brought it before the board and approved it for 103. I have that. I've seen that board meeting. We're dealing with a company that's broken promises to residents. They promised us a gate that they ripped down would be put up around our thing. It's never been done. We were told, the guy come to our door, there will be 4 blasts. Arizona Blasting Company will be 4 blasts. I don't remember the total number, but it's in the 40s. Broken promises. There's never been a gate that they promised. We have paperwork. They worked outside the scope of permits. Do you know this company worked outside the scope of permits? The California Department of Wildlife closed them down. Okay, for 2 years, the project went on hold. They drove their excavator, okay, and got sued for it. And we're talking, I know they've changed names. Imad, I know you're the same guy who was working with a guy before you. I know they changed names. It's the same people. It's the same circus.
Okay.
Do it for us, the current residents, city and county. And we know it's going to be developed. I'm not against that. Do it right. Do it when they're ready to do it right. They weren't ready before, and they're not ready now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Trapp. Then I still have a card for Mark Schlemmer, Joe Morgan, and Carol Steckline. Okay. Mr. Morgan?
Good evening, everybody. I'm curious about the hold. The annexation wouldn't be supported. As far as I know, every annexation I've ever seen was either going to be supported or not supported by the people that own the property. So we don't take a vote on it as Corona residents whether we want to add a location in. They apply, and if it goes through, then it gets annexed. That road is pretty sketchy. I'm sure you guys, because I know the work that you do, that you've been up that street. It is pretty sketchy. I'm over there all the time, and it's very sketchy on a good day to just roll up that hill. And I remember I had friends that lived right on Old Temescal, kind of Bel Air up at the top, and so they were going to lose parking. You know, everything was going to have to be on there. They were not happy about it at the time. It was a bad deal to begin with, and so now to see it die and then come back, and I guess it's sort of changed. You know, I guess the other thing that's the other elephant in the room that hasn't been talked about is with this signal thing on state and Ontario is there is a really major project that's going to go from California to State Street. And they're going to be taking property from all the businesses pretty much all the way along. The entire intersection is going to be different, everything. Is this signal part of that? Because that seems like it's a lot farther than 2 years off. And that's going to also sort of grease the tracks to do what the other resident was talking about, is have everybody hit the 15 right at Ontario. Everybody's going to go that way because it's going to be much wider on Ontario. And I haven't heard a bit about that, which is really odd because it's been talked about fleetingly at council meetings. But I've seen the plans, I've seen the widening plans for it. It's going to be much different. They're adding 3 or 4 lanes, you know, here and there. It's going to be a lane or 2 on Ontario. They're talking about having the road go right up against the back of Sombreros, you know, so it's a pretty substantial project that's going on over there. And how does that affect? Because that's going to be like a gigantic vacuum sucking traffic up State Street. And if you've ever been on State Street, that's not exactly a thoroughfare. So, you know, it's definitely a little rural road. That entire development is going to be going on State Street if that secondary access is on State Street. So, you know, I'm really curious about that. Even if, you know, lacking some other source, you're going to more than double the traffic that's going to be going down that little hump underneath the freeway. So, see what else there. Burr, 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 burr. So, anyways, thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Capia, do we have any other speaker cards that have come in recently?
No others, possibly speakers have changed their minds. Or did you want to speak? Yes, we have one more.
Card for me? Okay. I wasn't prepared, so I don't have notes, but just, I'm alarmed. I live on Old Temescal Road. When you go under the freeway and up that hill, I live right there. This is scary. That road is not safe as it is now. So you were mentioning traffic mitigating measures. I can't even imagine what you would do to that to make it safe. And then add more cars? Huh. Have you driven it? Have you gone up there? You can barely see. And I'm going to have to go up that hill and then turn left into my gate, into my home. It's already difficult. It's already not safe. That's a narrow road, and there's no visibility. There's no visibility for me coming out of my gate to turn right, to go down that hill. When you go up that hill, there's no visibility. I can't imagine what you're going to do to make it safe for another 1,300 drives a day. Yes, many of them will use State Street, which is horrifying for them as well. But there will be people that use my street in front of my home where it's already not safe. It's not wide enough. Barely 2 cars can fit as it is. And you can't see. When you go up that hill and there's another car coming, you can't see. All those people in those homes, they're not going to know that. They're not going to care about that. There's no, okay, you heard me. And if you're adding all of those 900 plus 300, 1,300 more drives a day, you have driven on Ontario between California and State, have you not? It's ridiculous as it is. You're adding that much more traffic to that area right there during traffic times. Have you driven that? Have you been backed up and all the cars switching lanes back and trying to get under the freeway there? So I as a resident living right there, the other thing is the traffic light and the traffic mitigating remedies don't have to be done until it's occupancy ready. What about all the construction? Since I've lived there, I have had so many trucks construction traffic is as bad, if not worse, than when people are living there. Why wouldn't we do all of those improvements before they can even start? There will be a lot of traffic before people move in. So can we fix that now so that it's safe with all of those construction trucks? And who fixes the road when all of that construction ruins the road in front of my house? Who fixes it?
Yeah. Well, thank you. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Capilla, was there a new speaker card that came in?
Yes, two more, Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Durick and Ms. Salazar.
My name is David Durick. We live up on Ambrosio, which is our primary path to get out of the area is State Street. Folks have done a great job already emphasizing. I just want to clarify one point on I love the idea of vacuuming the traffic. That's a great pointer. Vacuuming the traffic downstate with the access to the HOV. One of the points that we brought up when we met in May was to ask for a new traffic study. Thank you, we got a new traffic study. It still doesn't mention HOV, fast track, any access point at all in that entire study. So we asked for a new study, we emphasized that point, and it did not get addressed in the traffic study. So I would encourage everyone to scrutinize that study and ask the question, what did we really gain from the traffic study? Because it projects into 2025, but it doesn't mention current HOV traffic, doesn't mention additional fast track traffic. Now we're going to add the northbound 15 there as well. So whatever projections you have for fast track traffic being pulled down State Street will be magnified even greater as that expands to the 15 North as well as the 91. So it's going to get even worse there. It's going to pull even more of the traffic downstate. So I would just ask that until there's a traffic study that addresses the actual traffic, that's not a good traffic study, and it doesn't address the real needs and the projections we're going to see in that area. So until there's fast track in there, until there's HOV, until there's an actual realistic approach to how that part is accessed, we don't have a good traffic study to address this, even with the repeat study. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then we have another speaker.
Hi, my name's Megan Salazar. We live on one of the houses on Laurel Canyon that actually back up to where they do the construction. We used to have a very beautiful area where the reclamation pond they were speaking of earlier was. They came in and they terrorized the land against the wildlife that was there. There was endangered species. They were fined. It was a big deal. I used to be on the HOA board and would meet with the gentlemen and their development people, and they said, we're going to put it all back. We're going to make it beautiful again. Don't worry. All of your homes that line up, it's going to be pretty. Well, it's still ugly. Now we have an area of land that is not protected by a gate any longer because they tore it all down with their tractors. We have homeless. We have people that are back there screaming and yelling, clearly on drugs, where we are calling the police multiple times a week. And it's just created a very unsafe area that the land is private to our HOA and puts us at a liability. The second thing is the traffic, and that is that, as the other homeowners have said, is very unsafe. A little boy was hit, and that was back in, I think, 2006, and I was in the car. Wasn't the driver, but I was in the car. And he was walking home from school, high school, Centennial High School, and it was traumatizing for that little boy and his family. There's no streetlights. There's no sidewalks. Any of those houses, which is her house at the top, you have visitors, they park on the street. You can barely get one car through if you have two people parking on each side. So then you're going to add in 100 plus homes. That's our only in and out. Like Julie said, the natural disaster, a flood, an earthquake collapses that bridge. Where do we go? What do we do? And now you have 103 homes with more children who are going to be going to their gated community up and down that street. You're putting children's lives at risk. You're putting our home and our families at risk. It's the most dangerous situation, and it was not thought out properly. And the applicant and the developer, they know that. They know what they're up against. I sat in meetings with them, and it's not addressed properly. And all I think any of us are saying is, before it's approved, take the time to really look
at the fine print of it all and what you're willing to sacrifice by approving it, because it's safety, people's lives. And that should be what the important part of all of it really is, and not how fast can we get it done while we cut corners.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Salazar. So at this point, we can, if we have any questions for the applicant, we should ask them. Otherwise, we can close the public hearing and continue the discussion ourselves.
Well, I'd like the applicant to address the comments.
Can I add a quick rebuttal or added information? There's a couple of things that were said. So regarding secondary access to Sherborne, we looked at that. We did two things back in 2012, 13, 14. We met with Sherborne LLC, which is Robertson's. We tried to get a road out to Sherborne. They have an easement for BNSF Railroad. Not possible. It's 300 trips a day. There's no way we could. They're using that for their facility. We looked at going over the Cajalco lateral channel with a bridge and constructing a road on the dump. The DTSC said, no way. There is a methane gas cap there, 2 foot of clay on top with a vapor extraction system. Under no circumstances are we going to be able to build a road over there. So we looked at that, wholeheartedly tried to find another solution. Regarding safety of the public, there's nothing more important than the safety of the residents. This project has been conditioned to widen Laurel Canyon Road, provide sidewalks, provide streetlights. So we're gonna have a widened street to city standard that's in the conditions. There's also some traffic calming measures, I believe, with striping. Traffic engineers here, he's ready to speak to that effect, as well as his study. There was some comment made about LAFCO, and as you may or may not know, residential property is a take on city resources. So, but prior to submitting an application, you meet with the powers that be to find out if it would be supported. Because if it's not supported at the highest level, it's not going to be supported by staff level when it goes to review at LAFCO. So we were told there's no way that that property is going to be annexed into the city of Corona, period. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions for the applicant? It seemed like he addressed some of the comments that were brought up. And you are, sir?
Yeah, my name is Tom Huang. I'm the traffic engineer for the applicant.
Okay, yes, I have a card for you as well. Was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, just a quick few things. Yeah, so traffic study was updated last year with the newer counts. We started traffic study back in 2017, 2017. So we have older counts, and we also collect the newer count based on a request to update it with the newer counts. And the study was done according to the city standard. We follow the local service standard needed and the BMT analysis needed. And there's one question regarding how come the traffic study didn't look at HOV and also the fast track. That's because HOV, fast track are freeway traffic. They're regional traffic. There's not going to be traffic coming through traffic they're coming into State Street because it's gated. It's not going to be used as a cut through. So the traffic generated by the project is already considered there. The volume's already there. Yes, they may go on HOV lane, they may go on fast track lane, but those volumes are already in regardless of what assumption you're making for the HOV. And we did make assumption that they will go down to State Street to use the freeway ramp. So in a way that they're already considered in the study. Okay, you have a question?
I think that they were indicating that there's a higher propensity of residents that are going to go down State Street to get on the freeway at Ontario to catch the HOV lanes, not go under the freeway to get on at Magnolia. And I wanted to make sure that they knew that you thought that through.
Yes, we did. We increased the percentages, like the city actually also brought it up as well. We increased the percentage of traffic going towards south. I mean, yeah, we made an assumption that 60% going south and then 40% going north. Where previously we have assumed majority of the traffic will go on, go north on Old Temescal Hill. So we have considered that we make those changes accordingly. It's not what we have never, we didn't like ignore the concern that the resident brought up during the neighborhood meeting. Okay. And as far as, traffic volume on State Street being very, very heavy, currently we're looking at the volume right now. It's during the peak hour or the morning, during the normal morning peak hour, it's about, traffic here. It's about 160 cars per hour or so. So that's about 2 to 3 cars per minute. I mean, that's not extremely high volume, and these are fairly typical volumes you would see on these 2-lane road along in a residential neighborhood. So I wouldn't, they're not considered as very, very heavy traffic. The project traffic is increasing about, their volume generates 73 to 96 peak hour volume. So that's about something about, about 2 to 3 vehicles per minute. So so it is not a heavy thoroughfare we're talking about. Again, these are all within the capacity of your of your normal 2-lane roads.
I think that provides some good context for that current state of that State Street.
Okay. And
thank you. And then I know we have one more speaker card. Please.
Thank you, Julie Beeman, VCS Environmental, representing the applicant. I just wanted to comment on the comments regarding the endangered species, the ponds that were previously sewage treatment ponds, and kind of why the developer got held up with the regulatory agencies. Essentially, all of the agencies wanted the sewer treatment ponds gone, so they decommissioned those. And so doing, they were putting in their sewer line and hooked up the Bel Air folks to the sewer line as well. And in putting the sewer line in, they had a landslide that occurred, pushed them off into the creek area. They didn't realize, I don't think they were in sensitive areas. There was also a very small drainage that went down adjacent to the ponds that they went into for their construction, and the resource agencies didn't like that. So they had to go and process after the fact regulatory permits, which my firm helped them to do. We were brought in at that point. And so had to work with the agencies and basically right that situation. And those permits have all been issued at this point. So just wanted to be clear on how that was working. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so at this point, we will close the public hearing and we'll talk about it here on the dais. I'm going to kind of bring up a few points. First, it was great that we had so many residents from the area come. I know a lot of times we lament the fact that people don't come to the meetings, and so it's great that we had people here tonight willing to, be part of the process. So yeah, I'm familiar with that area. I'm familiar with Old Temescal and Laurel Canyon and Bel Air. I mean, it's definitely a tricky road, I would guess. I mean, I understand all the concerns, and when I've been over there, I can just imagine, it's narrow, the roads are winding, there's hills. I do think that the idea of Laurel Canyon being improved and getting sidewalks as part of this is definitely a positive and would be for the residents there. But I guess, so if maybe staff can clarify, Bel Air and Laurel Canyon, those are part of the city, or are those county?
The northern section of Bel Air is within the city of Corona, and then there's a southern section on the south side of Old Temescal Street that's in the county.
Okay. And then, I guess why is that area then not improved to the level that other parts of Corona are?
My understanding is that that area was annexed into the city of Corona, and so those streets were improved at that time when it was in the county's jurisdiction. That's why they currently don't meet city standards.
And so, do you know when that area was annexed?
I don't have that date, Ms. Coletta.
1992.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coletta. And so, I don't know, maybe Mr. Campu can address this. Is there any plan in place to improve those streets for the residents?
At the moment, the area that is scheduled to be repaved in the next annual pavement project, and we're talking about the roadway surfaces right now. It's just for rehabilitation. In terms of sidewalks and other improvements, we don't have any current plans as of yet to improve those areas.
Okay, because to me, that seems to be a glaring omission. I mean, this was annexed 31 years ago, and for 31 years, the city's done nothing to, improve that, and it's pretty obvious. So I don't know. I could staff bring that up to the city manager and get council input?
So this was a development that was annexed into the city. So the city accepted a pre-existing neighborhood. So in that case, the roads were already constructed. The right-of-way was already established. So when you have some of these anomalies where the city annexed county land, they're not designed to city standard. So we don't go back in there and start putting in sidewalks and street lights, because you're going to have to go in there and obtain all the right-of-way from their properties. That doesn't exist. So we're living with a pre-existing condition. It wasn't developed per our standard. It was developed per county standard.
Okay. So I agree with what some of the commissioners and what members of the public said, and even the traffic engineer. I mean, I think a lot of the traffic will use State Street, and so I'm a little concerned about, the impact there. I think it's great that there will be a light at State in Ontario. I think that's needed already, but. Yeah, I kind of struggling with the idea, the concept that half of this, or the second phase, is under the county's purview, and the gate is going to be the secondary gate, which will probably be the primary gate for a lot of residents. Is something we don't really get to. I don't know. I would rather condition. If we were going to do something with this condition, at least temporarily a gate on the city parcel here, the parcel that's in front of us, because I don't necessarily believe that the county would handle it correctly. I don't know that. I don't see the point of having a gate on a parcel that possibly doesn't get developed on a road. I mean, I don't know. Would Shadow Valley be paved at the beginning, or that's one part I'm not clear on, and maybe somebody staff can clarify that at one point. But yeah, those are the kind of things I'm not clear on. But also this, it was mentioned before, this is the application just to subdivide the parcels. And so I don't know if fixing some of these issues and, would need to be done now, or if it would need to be done when there's a precise plan. So that's something I'm just throwing out there for the commission to think about.
I heard a lot of the homeowners, landowners saying there has been damage to lots that were promised to be fixed. So there's still construction vehicles and equipment that's going through your property. That's the impression I'm hearing. Fencing not put up, making it vulnerable to people that are unhoused. And then the two things were the broken promises and State Street with the lights and the widening. And the gentleman a gentleman said that they did not have any plans for that, but how could that become a part of this project? It has been a long time. Who is responsible for that, or will the residents just be left with whatever comes up? I know that I am, for anyone's knowledge, I am a commercial real estate appraiser, and I have appraised your entire neighborhood. I've been here 28 years in Corona myself. There is a concern. I do want to say that it will not remain rural, so, change is coming. But for change to come, we can't ignore and just say, just get with it. What can we do to come to a midway here, to fix State Street, to widen it? I am for the light. I sat there, explained to Commissioner Alexander, I sat at the light, have always seen a need for that to be there, but it's not to put a light there to put more traffic. That's my question.
I think everyone's trying to understand what the question
Well,
is.
it was multi-layered. The land for the owners that have been already, that have already been impacted.
So it sounds like those are residents who live in the county portion there, like maybe along State Street or other county areas nearby.
Well, my concern is it was impacted because of this project.
So there was some blasting that was done by the prior owner. And yes, there were residents that back up to the project site. So there was some fencing damage and so forth. So we can have the applicant come back up and explain what has taken place since then. But yes, during the time of blasting, there were several complaints regarding, some damage to the perimeters of property.
By a name change, but still the same applicant. That's what I heard as well. So if someone could address that. You changed applicants, but you still did the damage in the benefit of this project. So who is mitigating that for the owners?
Yeah.
Well, and it's okay for the applicant to come back up and to clarify some of these comments, so we can ask them as to if in any conversation or what is happening on that.
So I guess maybe what I'd like to hear is, from either Ms. Coletta or is sort of on the process here, because I think, I know for sure I want to, before anything starts being built, I would like to make sure that that the planned infrastructure improvements, are going to move forward. If not before the start, but definitely before occupancy. And I know we talked about some of that earlier. But then again, the distinction I've kind of been asking about, is now the time to try to condition these changes? Or would it be later when we consider a precise plan? And then is there any way to get around, the county sort of being a wild card? Is there any way to condition things so if they totally botch it, we don't have the residents there bear the brunt of it?
So the conditions need to be imposed with this. This is the tentative track map, and this is where you're securing the necessity of all public improvements, which are there. They are there. like any residential development, they are put in as the project is constructed. And homes, 103 homes are not constructed all at one time. They do them in groups. They do a handful, maybe 10 homes, they sell, and then they move on to the next one. So it's done over time, and the improvements are put in. It kind of follows those phases. But the secondary point of access, which is coming from State Street, is why that road needs to be paved in the beginning, because we have to have the 2 points of access. So you have it from Laurel Canyon, and you're going to have it from State Street via Shadow Valley Drive. So that's why we had to condition it to be done with the first phase of the project, which is prior to C of O. So it's likely at some point during construction, that road will be constructed.
My struggle is, and I agree with the resident that said, all of the construction traffic is going to impact all of the residents that live there now. So I understand that it would be at C of O of that first house that sold before they could move in. They would have to do this. But what about, can it be conditioned that the road, the light, all of that has to happen before? That's the first part of construction. All the grading has already happened. Can those pieces happen now?
We could bring it up. I'm not their construction manager, so I don't know how they're moving it. But if there's some kind of temporary access that is brought in for that secondary while it's construction, that could be done absolutely before they put in the final road. But I would have to have the applicant speak on that, what the possibility is.
And can the roads that exist today be cameraed and any damages that are caused be required to be repaired by the applicant?
So that's why we do collect a security, and if there
Okay.
is damage done, absolutely, our inspector goes out there and looks
Perfect.
at that as well.
I think that it's good for the residents to know that so that they're not left holding the bag.
And those that are already left holding the bag, again, I'm stuck. You messed up my yard to start something, finish my yard, even though it's in the county. I don't understand. That's not clear enough for me. What happens to Ms. Sanchez? I don't even see the lady. Oh, what happened to her land? She was a casualty for them to get to this point. And as an appraiser, I think, if I can address this to the staff, are you clear? It doesn't sound like the question Commissioner Siquilin asked. It doesn't sound like it was asked in a way that I interpreted what you said. I caught it immediately. You're not going to put a full development in and then have a certificate of occupancy and then start some improvements. When I go to properties, I've appraised, sorry, I can't give you the example. It's in Riverside. So I appraised over by Sandals Church, that entire development. So much was put in on the roads, the lights, everything was put in. And then we were going in there at the same time that it was, sticks and everything on the houses. So the improvements were there at the same time that the models were being built and the first 10 homes or the bundle. So are you sure you're answering it or understanding the question? Because I understood it to mean, this is all happening at the same time. There's not going to be improvements when you get a certificate of occupancy because you're not going to be driving on mud to get to it. Am I wrong?
So, yeah, you have to have the appropriate access. I think the question specifically, though, that was asked was about Shadow Valley. And because it is an off-site road, we wanted to guarantee that would be put in place prior to anybody living in this development. So that is what staff wanted to guarantee. So I believe that was the question before, was Shadow Valley, because it's off-site to this project. So we want them to we want to make sure it's done prior to anybody living in that community because it needs to be done.
Okay, good. And then State Street's widening. Who's responsible for that and how?
County.
The county. Okay.
Do we need to hear it from the applicant again?
I think if there's any, I don't know if Ms. Beamer, if you can address any of the fencing or the perimeter or anything that happened from the prior blasting. I'm not aware of what the perimeter condition was or how it got resolved or.
All right, I will reopen the public hearing so we can talk to the applicant.
Okay, so first off, no problem building the road first. It actually needs to be graded and done, the Shadow Valley, because you need to, like Sandra and everybody said, you need 2 points of access for fire, especially during construction before you drop lumber. You got to have 2 points of access. So the road will be graded. It's actually already been graded in the phase 1 grading that's already been done. It just, the base rock will go in, utilities would go in, and then the asphalt would go in, obviously, prior to use in the gate, okay? Regarding
So is it possible, because you have to build pave the whole street, Shadow Valley Drive.
Right.
Is it possible to move the gate up to the Corona property? Because as we've talked about, nobody knows what's going to happen with Riverside. You said you don't have the application yet.
Okay, so we have, there is a document that's been recorded at the County of Riverside that states that the developer agrees in perpetuity, if this map is approved to build the road, it's a local standard, 60-foot wide, 40-foot curb to curb with 10-foot parkway and sidewalks. Shadow Valley, it's recorded. It's whoever buys the property, if Mari Geergis gets this approved and there's another developer that comes in and has the resources to finish and build the lots, subdivide it and build the homes, he would then have the money to either continue his county map or he could sell that property if he decides that he wants to get out. I'm going to be honest, I shouldn't say this, but he has sunk $40 million into this project to date. He's trying to get back pennies on the dollar. $40 million in infrastructure and grading he has spent. There's no more blasting that needs to be done. To the people that have damage that hasn't been repaired, I was not aware of that. I know that there are some people here that had the fence. We helped fix your fence. I went out there. I know. Well, I mean, I'm an engineer. I didn't do any construction. So I'm going to refrain from speaking negatively about a developer that didn't come through on promises. I don't condone that. I wasn't aware of that. I could say that if there are people here that are truly damaged, that were promised reprisals that haven't been compensated or paid, I think that possibly could be worked out privately or as a condition, but I can't speak to that effect because that wouldn't be my responsibility.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Brooks? Okay.
Chair, we do have a speaker requesting additional time to clarify the location of their concerns.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to hear those comments.
Your time, sorry. State Street is a county road, so I think there was some confusion when I was referring to the damage. I'm sure there's some damage on their end as well, but our HOA, I was on the board, I was president and vice president of Bel Air HOA. I'm referring to, if you look at the map where you go down Laurel Canyon, I think there's 8 or 9 homes that back up to where that pond was, and that's the fence. There's a surrounding fence that is supposed to protect that land. Their tractors knocked all that down, and it's wide open. And the damage to all of our properties, I have a pool fence that now goes like this that is no longer supporting my pool, that I'm going to have them come in and repair, and it's going to cost me thousands on thousands on thousands of dollars. So sorry about his loss that he took the risk on, but we didn't take that risk. And all of us homeowners can't afford to do that.
Right.
And Laurel Canyon is a private road, so to do a widening, like she said, it was already there, it was annexed in, but now you're gonna have to get all of those homeowners to say, okay, yeah, you can go ahead and put a sidewalk in my yard that's already established with gates that are up, and there's no widening of Laurel Canyon. It's not going to happen. So there's just false promises and false hope. And like I said, State Street is a county road, so you guys have there's no say that you guys have on that. That's left
our
to
concern,
Riverside.
part of
Yeah.
it.
So you know, the area where the woman addressed that, she said, you know, they came in, they tractored it, you know, they didn't know. I have video footage. They knew because they came in at 3:30, 4 a.m. They bulldozed an area that they were specifically told they could not bulldoze. It went against the wildlife reserve. It went against everything they said because my backyard backs up to it. And they intentionally moved dirt. I watched them. My neighbors watched them. My husband watched them. Intentionally blocked that channel, knowingly moved that dirt. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a tractor falling. It was intentional. And it's wrong to sit up here and to continue to lie and you want to cover your butts because you lost money. That's fine, but fix what you promised. You didn't fix. Our properties are not fixed. Our land behind our houses that they went in on is not fixed. It's not fixed. It's exposure, it's damaging, and it's just flat out wrong, and it's not safe, and it's just more lies, years and years of nonsense that we're fed, and we're sitting here and we're angry and we're upset because it's just feeding it. Like, oh, okay, well now here's something else to cover it up. And the truth is exposed, and we'll all keep coming here for as long as we have to stop it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think all of us here are very sensitive to the broken promises and to the damages that haven't been remediated. And that's kind of what we've been talking about. So, you know, at this point, we will close the public hearing and continue with our discussion. I don't know, do other commissioners have ideas on how we might possibly condition this?
You know, it's interesting. The more that I hear and the more questions that get asked, the more my head is spinning about, gosh, it doesn't seem like this circle fits. The development itself seems like a reasonable, good use of land, but getting into and out of that good use of land through existing streets, both city and county, that aren't getting improved. They may be getting signals at the end of the line, but the roads themselves that all this pass through concerns me that you've got this funnel.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I mean, yes, there are conditions. I mean, we've done this before as a commission where we've conditioned a lot of items, but I also don't know a lot of input from the public about property damage and those things. That was not part of any of the reporting or presentation to us. So I don't know if I know all the facts to be able to make a decision or a proposal.
Well, how about this? Because, yeah, I've been grappling with the county part of it, whether it's the adjoining parcel that would be developed at a later date, or, you know, more immediately, the fact that most of those residents will be using county roads into and out of that, you know, and obviously this is a few years away by the time this would be built. But I mean, I would like to know more, you know, from the county, I guess. I mean, because I don't know how we condition this right now unless somebody has some great ideas. But, you know, otherwise, maybe we could take time to seek input from the county for staff to do that, or to staff to get more details on the damages and the things like that we've been hearing about. I don't know if that's the path we should pursue, but I'm open to ideas from other commissioners.
I guess just one other comment is inaction on this might be just as concerning, because looking at this retention pond and the residents talking about what was done in the area directly behind them. This is a rough graded, large 60-acre property that has just been sitting since 2016, incomplete, and that also poses a problem as well.
I just want to chime in here, Chair, if I could. I'm not a fan of this project. I'm not a fan of the city, county. I'm not a fan of that at all. I think it gets us into finger pointing, especially for the Shadow Valley Road. I understand it's under the HOA. I have concerns about the safety concerns, the street conditions. I have concerns that I don't have enough information. I'd like some traffic collision stats on all those streets. I would like to, and have it go back to the time that the project came into play originally to present day, if that data is available from PD. I would like to see a condition that the developer, and I'd be willing to continue this until we have a report back, that the developer meets with those residents who have damage to their yards. This project impacted them negative, and nothing's been done. That's concerning. I understand there's been traffic calming measures. I understand the gates have gone in. I understand the second access, but I still believe that those, we try to be sensitive to cut through, and county, they're not, they're our neighbor. We know Temescal Canyon Road is 5-6 years out for acquiring that land. The right-of-way, widening it, it's going to be a mess. And they haven't even started yet. So I have some major concerns. Thank you.
Commissioner Alexander, you mentioned continuing for more information. I think that that's potentially what we need to evaluate here. There's a lot of things that we need to ask for, though, in order to do that. But I don't know. I feel like we don't have all the information to make a right recommendation on this.
Well, let's start making a list then, because staff can't just be given direction and not have specifics.
Yeah. I think, as you mentioned, we definitely want the developer to meet with residents, and maybe the city be informed or about what damages have been done that have not been, resolved. I mean, I think all 5 of us are concerned about that. So I know that's probably unusual for the city to, probably be involved in that or get that information, but.
And I personally don't believe that the city should manage that. That's a civil matter between the developer and the homeowners.
But I think the city
report
needs
back to us.
Right. We need to know all of what needs to be addressed.
I would like an update from county traffic, Riverside County Traffic. They were kind enough to come to our meeting back when to give us an update on Temescal Canyon. I'd like an update on that project, where they are for their timeline that was proposed. 5 to 6 years was when they brought it to us. I have concerns about the second half of this project being county standard. It's one project, but it's being divvied up. So I have concerns about that. I don't know, annexation attempts, 2012, there's new folks in town.
That's a long time ago.
Maybe that needs to be refreshed. That's something I'd like to hear some more on. I know the speaker talked about LAFCO versus current council or past city councils. It's one thing to hear from LAFCO that it would never get brought into our sphere of influence or into an annexation possible situation, but I think that's huge. I said, I just think it should be one project. And so be it if the developer needs to start that annexation project, buy into the current politics versus not. I'd like to hear more information on that.
I'd like to add, I'm concerned that the sidewalk and road development of Laurel Canyon as part of the development seems like a great approach, but what about that stretch of road from the development itself all the way underneath the 15? It's not lighted, it sounds like. I understand that there's right-of-way issues that could be there if there's lighting, but it seems to me like this, going back to my concern of this funnel coming into this old street that's unsafe, I think there should be some evaluation of what could be done. Could lighting be added to that roadway? Again, it's complex because one side of the street sounds like it's county and one city.
And plus, we have to remember, like
What do we do
Buena
there?
Vista for
Right.
the senior project,
Yeah.
obtaining right-of-way would negatively impact those residents because that shortens their whole front yard. They depend on that space for cars, driveway, playing area, whatnot. Does that negatively impact on Laurel Canyon? So anyway,
And for
not
me,
enough info.
the question of what happens with the Riverside County piece is just, most of my questions were centered around that. It's like, I could envision in the future, someone coming back and saying, well, we didn't get this, we don't have this level of service because the project didn't get approved at the county level. And I don't know how to do that. Is it a recommendation from the city that, you know, if with an approved project, that there's certain things that we're recommending that the county require in an application? I understand there was an application made, so it's not like there was an application made by this applicant to the county. Maybe we need to know what that looks like.
And also, I brought it up earlier, but I wanted to refresh it, is I'm not a fan of that open space with poor lighting, isolation. We have existing residents further up on the north of that space, above it, and we're creating a possible hazard for homelessness, for all of the above. And I would hate to have to recreate a Sierra Bella Park situation where I called just tonight coming over here and dispatch still deals with it, calls for service.
Is the green space required as part of the development, and that's why it's there? Can it just be nixed then?
I think they did it as providing, they tried to put lots in there, it didn't work, so it just became an open area that's
An amenity
made-
that won't be an amenity?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's why they went to the passive design. So it's got to
Okay.
be landscaped to some degree and maintained by the HOA along with all the other landscaping in the community because they have steep 2-to-1 slopes that are going to need regular maintenance.
It's almost one of those, like, can you make it uninviting landscaping so that you don't have a nice comfy place for someone to lay down?
Yeah, you could definitely look at that. We no longer allow turf on non-usable recreation areas. It could be a desert landscape, something like that.
It is not gated, so it's open to foot traffic. I mean, that's how people would get into it. So anything, if you're prone to sleeping outside, you're going to sleep on concrete. So it does have to have some other use unless it is gated.
Well, I think if that area is developed, that will probably discourage homeless. I mean, now when it's just a giant empty area that's dark and secluded, I mean, I think it's probably an inviting place for people who don't want to be around other people. So, I mean, the other thing I would want to hear about is more details on the traffic on the county roads around there, if there's any improvements planned, what it would take for State Street to get improvements. So that's something I would want to know more about the county aspect of it.
As well.
Is there any other things that, I don't know, Ms. Coletta, you taking good notes on the things we're saying?
She's like, I'm glad it's being recorded.
Lighting and street widening, that's something that I would just never give into. Those things are necessary.
So I would agree with kind of all of the residents that said there's more than what is being stated in the traffic study that's going to go south on State Street. I think 60% is not realistic. I think it's going to be more than 60%. So if it is more than 60% in the than what this traffic study says, would more mitigation be required? And if so, what does that mitigation look like?
At the top of the conversation, we asked the gentleman from Riverside, and you made a statement that if it's gated, Riverside does nothing. Can you refresh my memory about what that was, Ms. Coletta? It becomes private.
It becomes private and the responsibility of the HOA is what they said.
Okay, so that's, well, I know that's the development, but a lot has been said, so I'm trying to refresh my memory on what part
If
of
Shadow
that.
Valley is not gated and it's open, then the county has to accept it as a county-maintained road, and then they would have to maintain it because it wouldn't be developed to a private street standard.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I would like is possibly moving the gate to the Corona parcel. I'm also concerned with the idea of two different standards, you know, the idea that Shadow Valley, you know, and then the southern part of the property would be county standards, whereas the northern part is city standards, and maybe part of that is the annexation question.
So when you talk about the gate being moved up where it originally was on the city there, and yet if the road is built, then that would be maintained by the county versus an HOA, which would be a lot more stable capacity to maintain it. I have concerns about the HOA maintaining that slope in the open passive area also. I mean, they're even going to have to put fencing in so rocks falling wouldn't be, no one would get close to it. So it's somewhat of a hazard with wall being built up. So maybe that is what you're talking about regarding the gate being closer to city, but the road being maintained by county and being built.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Because what if the county part of the project never gets built? What if it gets changed hands to somebody else down the line? Because it almost sounds like that's what they want to do, is sell it to somebody else who may be able to better develop it. But I guess what I'm thinking at this point for this item, and Ms. Coletta, maybe you can help. What I would like to table it. I don't know if we have to continue it to a specific date, or if we can just kind of leave it open-ended at this point and then renotice it when it comes back. But I would also think maybe before it does come back, you know, these items we've tasked you and your staff with, getting more, could that be presented back to the commission as a director's report before bringing this back as an item again?
No, so because it's related to a project, we need to have it in a fashion where the developer has the opportunity to speak, and it's an active project. So when we bring it back, we will be addressing all of these topics at that time.
Okay. So then would we continue it with open-ended, or do we?
Wouldn't that depend on the time that staff needs to obtain that info?
Seems like this would take at least a few months to get the information that we've kind of thrown out there.
I don't think it'll be a few months. The only thing I could do is, if we want to ask the applicant on a potential timing, we can list some dates that we have the next meeting, or if we take it off calendar, we will have to re-advertise when it's ready. So, but I think it's fair to let the applicant come up and see if they want to continue it to a date certain that staff thinks they can work with them on.
I mean, I'm not against leaving it open-ended and renoticing and getting more public opinion, but I'm not against doing it Ms. Coletta's way either. So it's up to the other commissioners what you guys think.
It doesn't matter to me. I'm open either way.
As am I.
As am I.
Okay. Well, I guess, should staff, what would you recommend?
So
Joanne?
just based on the timing and the information you're asking for, the next likely meeting in January would be January 22nd. That means the second week of January, we would have to have that resolved. So the following meeting would have to be February 12th, I believe. It would be the one in February, which would give us more time in January to work on all of this.
Does that seem like something the applicant would want? Or should we leave it open-ended?
The applicant would definitely like to have a date certain. The applicant has been working with city traffic and county traffic for over the past year on several of these issues that you're all bringing up. So I think we should be able to answer those questions pretty quickly. In fact, I think some of them could even be answered tonight with Kevin here from the county. But to the extent we want to wrap this up, I think the staff, this is not new information for our internal team who's been working with the city. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Then I'll make a motion to continue the item to February 12th of 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, let's please vote. Okay, the motion passes. The item is continued. And then back to other lines on the agenda. Ms. Kabia, have we received any written communication from persons providing information or seeking action by the commission?
Related to this item, a speaker will send me an email that I will share once I receive that.
Okay,
Other than that, no.
okay, very good. And then Ms. Coletta, any report tonight?
No, this is just our last meeting for the year, so we will see you all in the coming year. I do want to let you know our decision to do an election of chair and vice chair is going to happen during the fiscal year, since that's when the chair and the vice chair were elected, so that would be a 12-month period. So we will do those changeovers come July, come that meeting in June or the first part of July. So, Mr. Woody, you just have to hang on another 6 months.
Okay, that's fine. I'll turn it to the commissioners. Any other things to bring up?
I just have one quick thought. On the previous item, there were a lot of comments about the lot being open and unfenced and unhoused walking in. I'm wondering if from a compliance standpoint, if a fence is required there while it's vacant, and if so, can we code check for compliance of fencing and so forth? Is that something
There's nothing that requires them to fence.
Okay.
No.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
That's all I have.
Okay, anything else, commissioners? No? All right, with that, we are adjourned.